Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of superhero television or film. And this week we are talking about The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl 3D.
He is a shark boy.
She is a lava girl.
And
could I make it any more obvious?
Make it any more obvious?
Yes.
Why has it got to be so complicated, as they say back in the 2000s?
Right.
We're talking about their adventures.
Yes.
Because there's a sequel. So you have to do the original.
And the sequel.
And next week we're going to do the sequel.
Is called...
We Can Be Heroes?
We Can Be Heroes? Let's Be Heroes?
I think We Can Be Heroes.
Is it We Can Be Heroes? We're doing it next week, and I've already forgotten the name because why would that be the sequel to The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl 3D?
It doesn't even have a 4 in it.
No,
This was 3D.
Yeah. And this was the first movie.
This was the first, but there's no 1D.
Yeah, but Robert Rodriguez also did Spy Kids, Spy Kids 2, and then Spy Kids 3D. He held back.
Was Spy Kids 1 not the 3D one? Because Spy Kids 1 is supposed to be the good one.
Spy Kids 1 might have been in 3D, but it was just Spy Kids.
It was just Spy Kids.
It wasn't until Spy Kids 3D. So Robert Rodriguez, he knows that restraint is an option. He knows it's an option, but he did not choose to wait for the third one. He was like, Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl, it's got to be 3D out of the gate.
Do you think maybe there was a chance he thought there was a small possibility he wouldn't get a trilogy out of Sharkboy and Lavagirl? Is that, could I have cracked the code?
It did take 16 years to get the sequel, so 15 years to get the sequel. So, he might have been right. Maybe 15 years from now, we'll get the third, and then we'll have the trilogy.
They're like grandparents.
It's gonna, yeah. We get one a generation. Could be the thing for this.
That's enough. It could be 3D again.
Ooh, that comes back around in the
3D
future. 3D
always comes back around. We had 3D in the 70s.
Yeah.
3D has ups and downs.
Yeah. I don't think it'll come back again, though.
I think it will.
All right, interesting.
I believe in trends.
Bold move. All right, so we're going to be talking about The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl 3D this week. But before we get into the episode, we want to thank our wonderful sponsor. You know them, you love them. It is tpublic.com.
Oh, it is tpublic.com. It's a new year, new you. You need new clothes.
Exactly.
New clothes with designs by indie artists who are getting a fair commission for their work. You're going to look nice. You're going to support indie artists who might be struggling or might be doing great. I don't know about you indie artists, but either way, they're getting a fair commission for their wonderful designs.
Absolutely. You're going to find incredible designs and unique stuff on tpublic.com. One shirt that I am liking this week is very simply a Cobra Kai t-shirt, and it is the Cobra Kai logo. Y'all, if you haven't watched Cobra Kai on Netflix, check that out. It's a good show.
Season 3 is out this week.
Haven't watched it yet, but loved 1 and 2. So I'm feeling this Cobra Kai this week. I'm into that.
I know you're super into Cobra Kai. No spoilies, people, by the way. We haven't watched it yet. This week, I am loving That's All, Folks. It's a Spider-Ham shirt from the Spider-Verse, and it's very Porky Pig-esque. That's all, folks. And that's how I feel about 2020 being gone. That's all, folks.
Get it on out of here.
Get out of here.
Get it on out of here.
And it's just a wonderful design you wouldn't get anywhere else.
Absolutely. And if you find a design that you like on tpublic.com, don't let the name fool you. You can also get it on sweaters, hoodies, pullovers, tank tops, different styles of shirt, different colors, different fabrics. But if you're not in the market for clothing, you can also get cell phone cases, laptop cases, pillows, stickers, accoutrement, if you will. Masks as well, which is nice. I've got a few masks from them now. They're very nice. And you can find all of that over at tpublic.com and specifically shop through our store link, which is at tpublic.fromsuperheroes.com. That's TEE public.fromsuperheroes.com, because when you shop through that store link, not only will you support the independent artist who designed and created that work, but you'll also directly support this podcast as well. And when you head to that link, you can check out the store, see ones that we've mentioned here and on previous episodes, and as well, you can just shop around at the whole selection, tpublic.fromsuperheroes.com. And thank you, TeePublic, for your support.
Thank you so much, TeePublic.
And now, let's get into the episode. Let's talk about The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl 3D.
He's a shark boy, she's a lava girl.
So we have seen this ridiculous movie. Diana, did you like it?
I'm so sorry. I feel like you are going to disown me. I loved this. I loved this bad movie. I had so much fun. It was high energy and it's ridiculous. And it's directed very well. Like, for its ridiculousness, I think Andrew gave me the worst look he's ever given me in my life. I think the direction for like everything is really spot on for the type of humor that's trying to happen here. I think this movie was specifically made for me. I had so much fun. I think Taylor Lautner is incredible in this. I had an amazing time. And I've never seen this. This isn't a Batman Forever nostalgia thing. This is the first time I've seen this. I thought it was great, but I understand that it's terrible. Andrew, did you like it?
I don't dislike it that much.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't, but at the same time, I don't dislike it because it is self-aware. It knows what it is. But to say it's well directed is what makes me almost like explode. I don't understand how you could. That would be like if I saw kids on a street having like a super soaker fight, like they're having a water gun fight in the summertime. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at those kids doing that, but I would never look at it and say, that's the best directed action sequence of the year. What a summer blockbuster. Like, I'm not mad at this movie in the sense that it knows what it's doing. What it's doing is absurd. It is the worst and most carefree direction I have ever seen in a film, ever. It is, I was falling asleep. It is both absurd and very boring. But I also think it is what it is. It's fine. It's not failing at anything it attempts to be. It's not attempting to be anything grander than it is. And I actually think it's quite a sweet story of two parents and their kid, or like behind the scenes story of like two parents and their kid making a fun movie together. And I actually really like that idea to be like, this is a kid's movie by a kid for a kid with his parents' help. You know, this is a soapbox derby of films, which is obscene that it got $35 million to make that. But I think the story behind it is fun. It's definitely not for me. It is actively, it is not a kid's movie that adults can enjoy. It is by kids, for kids.
I had so much fun.
I don't know how you had this much fun watching it, and to say that it's well directed is bananas.
I wouldn't say the action was like you brought up the action, and the action is just blah. But I think the comedy is very well directed, and because kids are hard to work with, and all three of these kids are doing a pretty damn good job on a very fine type of comedy. Mm-hmm. It's like over the top on purpose, but still has to be held back a little bit. I think the direction is very good.
Okay. I definitely won't say that working with kids is easy, for sure. It is insane, though, that this is a movie where Robert Rodriguez is like, give me 12 children, one camera, and a green screen. Be like, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. And George Lopez, apparently.
Make sure George Lopez is there.
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez is the most interesting filmmaker I've ever heard of. The extremes of his movies are baffling because he did Spy Kids, and then what are his other ones like Machete, Grindhouse, Sin City?
Yeah, Machete, Deathloop, or Death Race, whatever the Death one. Machete, Sin City.
So just like the most family friendly things, and then just like R-rated, awesome
Grindhouse
action.
Horror action. Yeah.
What a diverse man.
Yeah, and then Alita Battle Angel, which I haven't seen, but I think that's him. I think that might be somewhere in between. I have not seen it.
That in the trailers. Yeah.
But to start positive, what I really like about the concept of this movie, because the movie itself, I'm not going to give much credit. I agree with you. Lautner's kind of a star. We'll get into that later. But I love the concept of this movie and how Robert Rodriguez is a filmmaker who has two insanely different identities. And I think it's fun and playful and joyous that he's like, I am an adult with my own interests and tastes. And then I make family movies because I like my kids. His kid wrote this. It was written by a 7-year-old. I believe.
I think the story was by, and then
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
someone else did the dialogue. But yeah, his kid wrote these characters in this story.
Parents helping their kid with a volcano for the science fair kind of thing. Like, you got the skeleton and bones from the kid, and then the parents came in and helped clean it up. But it's still the child's project in pretty much every regard. And what I like about that as the version of Robert Rodriguez that's making this film or making Spy Kids or stuff like that is that it feels very almost similar to like an Adam Sandler type of thing that's going on, where Adam Sandler can show up and give you uncut gems, like a performance and film that should have had a Best Picture and Best Performance nomination, and frankly, it's a travesty it didn't. Adam Sandler will give you that and actually create art, and then we'll be like, I do want also a $600 million contract with Netflix to make 9 fart joke movies with my friends. Mm-hmm. And I've never been, for everyone who's like mad at Sandler, even though I don't enjoy those Sandler movies, I'm like, well, yeah, if you can do an art and then get paid a ton to have fun with your friends, why wouldn't you? But why I think Robert Rodriguez is a better version of this is that the Sandler of it all, I get that idea of Hollywood. I'm going to make art and then get paid to have a lot of fun. But Sandler's version of fun is like, can I get paid a lot of money to hire my buddies, which involves Rob Schneider making a rape joke and David Spade like making a pedophilia joke, and like that's it. And I'm like, this is uncomfortable, and your friends are kind of offensive and shitty. But Robert Rodriguez is like, okay, I made an art. Can my kid have fun and make a sandbox for my kid? Like, that is a sweet and pure idea of filmmaking and of like the artistic process, and I love it.
There is definitely a feeling of joyousness and freedom of this film. Like, it's not a movie with plot holes because it wasn't trying to have a plot. It was like, my kid wrote a stream of consciousness story. We made a movie about it. It's not trying to be anything, and we all just had fun, and you can feel that joy and freedom. It wasn't like there wasn't a producer on his back being like, you gotta do this. Like, you can tell there's no studio interference. This is just a passion project of fun, as opposed to like high art, high action, violence stuff that he does the other end of the spectrum. So yeah, I totally agree. There's a wonderful feeling of joy and freedom in this film.
And even though it is a film made for his son and made for his family to have fun, it oddly feels like less nepotism than is common in Hollywood. Like, at no point does it feel like I am doing this so my son has his first writing credit and can be a new star in the industry. There are a bunch of stars this year who have won awards and gained international praise because their famous and rich parents decided that their children would also be famous or rich. And there is no stink of that. It is the least pretentious and nepotistic?
I don't know
question
what
mark
word
what
is
the tense would be for that, but it doesn't, even though it is all familial connection that this movie even exists, it doesn't feel cheap or like that's the reason it's made.
I agree, and I think it's because he didn't give his son a big role. He's one of the extra kids in the class, but he's not Sharkboy, he's not Max. If he was Sharkboy or Max, that would maybe be a bit too much. This kid had a dream, he gets to play the dream. It's really just like a fantasy filler for the kid then. But to just be like, you can be on set in the classroom and you can kind of be involved, but it's still a real movie. It's still work, but you're not. But I don't know, this kid didn't even like, he's an adult now, I assume, and he's not famous. I don't know him from anything.
No?
This wasn't a foot in the door for my kid. It was a fun thing we did together. And it's sweet. And should we get into the actual the movie though?
Get on in,
Where do you start with Sharkboy and Lavagirl? Just off the top. You know what? Let's start crazy positive on what you agreed with. Taylor Lautner is crazy impressive in this film.
He's really good,
Oh my God. I've never seen him in anything. I haven't seen any of the Twilights, and I don't know what else he did. He did a couple other shows, according to his IMDb. But I've never seen Taylor Lautner in anything.
Right.
And I can't believe I'm saying this based off Sharkboy and Lavagirl, but this guy should have been a star.
Yes. Of the main 3 from Twilight, a thing we've never seen, how is Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson the 2 that had hot careers coming out of Twilight? Like, I don't understand, because going reverse in time, you watch Taylor Lautner in this, and it's like, well, that's the fucking dude right there.
That's the dude. His comedic timing is incredible. His comedic
Surprisingly good.
His comedic delivery also amazing. And he does his own stunts. You guys, if you haven't seen this kid is doing, that's not CG. He's doing it all. He's a national martial arts champion, and this is all him.
He's doing backflips and working with like eskrima sticks and like bow staffs and shit, and he is rock. He did his own stunt choreography.
And it looks incredible.
And the kid's like fucking 13 and is on a green screen stage with nothing, working with no one. And as a 13-year-old choreographed a backflipping bow staff fight that frankly looks better than like Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. Like, it is bananas what this kid does and accomplishes in this movie.
And it looks so good because he's doing all of the moves. And like you said, it's green screen. So he kind of just do whatever he wanted, and then they were going to put bad guys in there that he's hitting.
Yeah.
So because they were doing that, they just filmed it in a wide because he never had to pause.
Right.
Like, he's doing 8 flips and 20 punches, and then he's swinging his bow staff around at the bad guys, but it's all in one take, no choppy cuts, no close-ups to a fist hitting a thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cheap way to do it, but also it's very Jackie Chan-esque of you see it all happen, and you watch this one long take without cuts, and you're like, oh my, to the point where I had to go to YouTube and I was like, I just don't believe this wasn't CG'd. And I had to watch his, like, they have, like, footage of his old national championship, like, routines, like, just on shaky video cameras. You're like, holy shit, he can do all of this at age 12. How did he not become the next huge action star?
Yeah, like, this guy who, and obviously, you know, a 12-year-old with a martial arts background is not the same as an adult with a martial arts background. But that said, a 12-year-old with a martial arts background who does his own fight choreography and stars in a green screen movie where he actually works with a bow staff, and then is given wealth and fame, can maintain a level of like training and preparation that should put you on track to be like the next goddamn action star. So I don't understand how I've heard more about Kristen Stewart of the Twilight 3, even though I know that's a different, you know, franchise and stuff. But of the Twilight 3, I know more about Kristen Stewart and Pattinson. And Taylor Lautner was a name that I knew there was a third person in the Twilight movies, and I had forgotten his name until watching this movie. And now I don't think I'll forget the name Taylor Lautner, which is fucked up.
That is a really badass thing to say to Taylor Lautner. Like, I will never again forget the
your name.
Taylor Lautner. Oh my God. Yeah, his fight scenes were incredible. It's wild to think he never became an action star because, like I said, his acting is also really good. I mean, Robert Rodriguez hit the jackpot on this kid.
Yeah, really did.
Like, you can't get a stuntman to do a kid's choreography. Yeah. You have to get some kind of small child or small person to do this choreography or it's not going to look right. But also his comedic timing was incredible. And also just the jokes are very good. Like when he keeps threatening to knock Max out because they need him to sleep. And then just all of a sudden he's holding a pipe. Fuck, that was hilarious. Yeah. He's so violent.
And him putting the pipe behind his back. Decent comedic instincts for a kid.
Decent comedic. And also, I think my favorite part is the Dream, Dream, Dream song.
Yeah.
This was unnecessary.
Which he dedicates to.
He goes all in. It's a weird dream where it's like, so it's a song about a lullaby, but he doesn't like Max, so he's like, it's got a nice tune, but he's being mean to him, and he's doing like breakdance fighting. It's pretty catchy. Dream, 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 dream.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst. What I love about, frankly, all of the performances in this movie, of all of the kids, one thing that I really enjoy, which is the style that the movie is going for, and it succeeds, and it is fun, and actually brings a lot of charm to the movie, which is the fact that it's going to sound like an insult, but none of these kids are acting. Like, none of these kids were directed to act in the same way that children in movies are typically directed to act. All of these kids are acting with the full commitment and dedication of, like, you are at a Christmas party and your, like, nieces and nephews pulled you down into the basement to show you a play that they wrote that night. Like, it is that level of, like, a family gathering and the kids want to show you something they just came up with. Where it's kind of like, it's kind of a sloppy mess, but they're all 100% committed to doing even the silliest things for the sake of a character with no reservation or forethought. And that's actually kind of the fun of this movie and the performances in it.
I will agree on the vibe. The slightly different vibe I got from it of just like, you're not acting, but you're acting, is it did just feel like playing. Like when you're that young and you're just going out and you're like, I'm the Yellow Ranger, I'm the Pink, like I would pretend to be Power Rangers a lot with my friends. And you're all like, I'm the Pink Ranger, Power Bow, Tommy Quick. Like you're acting in those moments in a way.
Right. Yeah. You run up to your friend, you're like, I'm a shark now. I'm a shark. And like you're dedicated. You are
dedicated, and pretending is a type of acting. And this felt more like pretending than acting.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretending I'm a shark boy, and also Lavagirl's pretty good too. And I'm like, these are genuinely like two superheroes that are pretty badass. They're doing a great job in like the poses and like the fights.
You boiled it down so that's the perfect way of describing it. It is not acting, it's pretending. And I mean that in the nicest possible way.
It's a compliment, and it doesn't sound like it is.
Yeah.
From our tones, you can tell.
Unpretentious and sincere and just fun and trying to be nothing more than fun.
Yeah, nothing more than fun. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Yeah. Now, to get into a few negatives.
Oh, of course. I loved it, but also I get that it's very terrible.
The whole thing's bananas. I'm not going to like harp on the, air quote script too much because it's written by a literal 7-year-old. And frankly, this 7-year-old is better than a lot of 50-year-old adult filmmakers working the industry today. This is a clearer dream structure than Inception. This is not the worst. And turning his dreams into a reality at the end, I'm like, this is the plot from last season of Legion. Like, this is actually reasonable structure for a 7-year-old for the most part.
I mean, I think he stole a lot from Neverending Story, but we can get into that later.
Hey, again, adults are lifting shit.
I know. That's why I'm not mad about it. I think this kid watched Neverending Story, came up with different characters, and then he's like, and it's this now. And I'm like, I ain't mad at this kid. I wrote Power Rangers fan fiction at his age. It's fine.
I ain't mad about that at all. So the kid presumably came up with most of the story. The parents touched up the dialogue or whatever. But where I think this movie is so like bananas bad is where adults got involved. Because the kid's not operating the camera or producing the CGI. So there's no fucking reason for it to look and be edited and paced this atrociously for a $35 million cost of a movie. This movie cost $35 million for the kids giving it their all, playing pretend, having fun. I love it. For a 7-year-old putting together a somewhat sloppy but still better than a lot of adult filmmakers coherent dream comes to reality storyline, love it. For producers and filmmakers who are getting $35 million to do what I think is worse than an AV department in a high school would do for no money with 6 kids, that's embarrassing. Like, this would actually, I think, look visually better if Robert Rodriguez's kid did it as a school project.
I disagree. And I like that they kind of don't try on some of the effects. Because this movie is basically 90% green screened. It has over 1,000 VFX shots in 2005.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can commit to. So the idea that they're on planet Drool, a fake planet, and they're like, nothing's going to look real. It's a fictional place. We're not going for that realistic, like, Jurassic Park CGI. So I really don't mind, like, any of the silly CGI at all. I think it all kind of fit. I like that they committed to a consistency kind of it. The only time it's really silly is when they're on, like, the cookie stream and they have one practical cookie that they're standing on.
Right.
And then, because everything else has been CG, and you're like, actually looks pretty good. Why didn't you build more stuff?
Yeah.
They could have built more stuff. I'll give them that.
Well, that's the other thing. It would have been both cheaper and better to build more stuff. Like, that giant fake cookie is a prime example. That is a practical set that is surreal and it looks better than any of the CGI while still maintaining that level of surrealism. And there's always been those type of movies, and sometimes they're CG and sometimes they're practical. Like a great example of a lot of practical, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh my God, all the practical in that is so good.
And that is a movie that still maintains what I think Sharkboy and Lavagirl has, which is that sense of like surrealist fantasy. Like at no point are you supposed to feel genuine fear that this is the life that you live. Like, you know, this is a dream, you know, it's kind of silly, but there's a way to do that surrealism and still have it look good and disconnected. And especially when I get that there's a lot of CG to do here with very little money, but most of it is just green screen. And I mean like zero cost. There's not even motion tracking. Like the camera doesn't move. If I set up a camera in our bedroom on a tripod and then me in front of a green screen, it doesn't cost anything for me to change the video that plays behind me. So it's not like a traditional movie where the more CG shots, the more expensive it is, because now we've got a rotating crane shot on a green screen soundstage while Chris Evans in the Captain America suit jumps, throws a fake shield, and it needs to hit 19 different 3D tracking CGI elements. It is just a MP4 video playing behind them. So there's no real reason for it to look this bad, and they're all center framed looking directly down the camera. Yeah. So there's never an over the shoulder. They're never even slightly askew. It honestly looks like Robert Rodriguez just set up his cell phone on a tripod in front of a green screen and said, "Go kids." And the kids are doing great. And then he never put any more work in as a very talented Hollywood filmmaker with a $35 million budget.
I guess I get what you're saying, but also dreams are just like that. My dreams don't have weird angles. They're just straight on. Yeah, I guess I kind of get what you're saying, but I'm not mad at it. It was a fun movie. They didn't want to stress about the effects. He didn't want to stress about any of it. I imagine it is like less stressful for the kids when they're not doing over the shoulders. They're just like, you can just go home. We're going to do Taylor in a single shot now. Other Taylor. Both the main kids were named Taylor, if we haven't mentioned that.
No, they're not.
Yeah, the girl's named Taylor.
Oh, the girl's named Taylor.
Yeah.
Ah. Oh, yeah, double Taylors.
Lavagirl is also named Taylor.
All right. I was thinking of the kid named Max. And I was
not the kid named Max.
Max is something else.
The kid named Max is Caden.
Caden.
That's not even...
Taylor, Caden.
Taylor. Classic. But yeah, I don't mind the effects.
Okay.
I think they're fun. I think the only really weird choice for me was to have just George Lopez's unedited face in Mr. Electric. Because, like, everything else is either I'm a full robot like Tobor, or I'm in a costume, and, like, they didn't, like, put a filter over his face or anything. They're just like, here's George Lopez, who you met as a teacher, and here is a completely the same looking, no edits made, no attempt to hide him, also as Mr. Electric.
I fully disagree. I think that's the only effect that works. And that's literally the only... They need to fix that body. Like the electricity arms and stuff, that should look better. But him in like, they add this fishbowl warping effect where like they actually change him based on the environment and the shape of the screen that he is on. That is one that they actually put some effort into in terms of like tracking and adjusting and warping the size and shape of his face to add this fishbowl effect. So it's not like he's on TV. It's like he's on a TV inside of this dome of a belly, and I actually think it's one of the sharper looking things in this movie.
I don't think that looks all that bad, but there's no attempt to hide who this is. Like, he doesn't feel electric when he's in the bowl.
Oh,
like
okay.
Someone in a bowl doesn't feel electric to me. Like, they didn't give him like pale like electricity scan. They didn't send lightning bolts across his face.
Right.
They didn't do anything electric to him.
Right.
They just put him in like a MODOK body.
Yeah, it is basically just MODOK.
It's just basically MODOK.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was no shift of him. Like, even if they just put a filter over his face.
Right.
So you can kind of be like, maybe that isn't, like, you're always going to know it's George Lopez, but at least the kid's mind had altered him somehow.
Okay, I see what you wanted
Yeah.
it altered.
I wanted him to look slightly altered.
Okay.
Even though Minus didn't really look altered either.
Yeah,
He had a different hairdo.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Okay.
This kid's not good at altering things in his mind.
And
Because his parents is...
but was he supposed to be? Who cares if they're not altered?
Well, that's the whole point when you go into a fantasy world. It's like Wizard of Oz. You're like, the lion is the guy who works at the barn.
Okay.
The wizard is the aunt. Like, they
Right.
have to look a little different.
Right.
So yeah, they just didn't look... I mean, the parents were the worst. Because they were cookie giants?
Oh yeah, they were just straight up there as
They
cookie
were just
giants.
straight
Yeah.
up themselves.
Yeah.
But they were like... And then after they left, the kid was like, those kind of looked like my parents. And I'm like, they looked exactly like your parents.
Those just were your parents.
What are you talking about? Even
Yeah.
when Mr. Electric comes to the real world, and then Mr. Electricidad has to be like, "Hey, I'm the bad guy in your dreams." Like, he recognizes himself.
Yeah.
There needs to be a little shift in the look.
I'm okay with that. They made no effort to shift it, and I think that's fine.
It's weird that we disagree on what's good and bad in this film so hard. This has never happened before.
Well, it's a bananas movie. There's a lot going on, but yeah, I don't understand why they would need to change anyone's look or personality.
Well, because hear me out on this. George Lopez plays like 3 characters in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
So he's Mr. Electric, but he's also the Ice Princess's dad, but in a completely different form. And he's her dad in real life.
He plays the Ice Princess's dad?
He does the voice of that like ice thing next to the Ice Princess. The
Okay.
ice giant thing.
Okay, sure.
So that doesn't look like him. So you transformed him, and that's like the actual girl's dad.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, that's more of what I think these things usually do. Like, oh, it sounds like him, and it is her dad, and he's protective like he is in real life.
Okay.
More like that.
Okay, I see what you're saying, but let's talk about that.
Oh, let's talk about that daughter. This is going to be something we agree on.
Yeah, this will be an easy agree, which is changing a white actor's ethnicity with spray tan, I think.
That was the most spray tan child I'd ever seen. Yes, absolutely. So this was supposed to be George Lopez's daughter, and she is very clearly a white woman as an adult, and she was very clearly a white child as a child with a spray tan.
George Lopez, a man of Mexican descent, a Hispanic Latinx man, and his daughter is played by a white South African woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, who they just bronzed up to be like, maybe she's George Lopez's daughter. No, not fucking cool at all.
It's so not cool, and it's the weirdest thing is that Robert Rodriguez is also Mexican.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what happened here?
I don't understand how this happens.
And also, like, have a bit more imagination. You didn't need to even do this to this girl. Maybe he adopted her. Maybe she took more to her mom, and she wasn't quite like George Lopez.
Just
like,
don't brown face her.
don't brown face a little girl. I'm gonna put a hard line on the
Yeah.
sand here. I'm gonna really put my foot down saying don't brown face a little girl.
And it's 2005. This movie wasn't made in 1992. Like, I don't understand. Holy shit.
The fact that, I mean, I don't know what you'd say about it, but the fact that there was no IMDb trivia mentioning the fact that they did this to her, like...
It is wild.
How do you tell a little girl in one of her first roles, like, oh, by the way, we have to color you up entirely differently when you're not playing one of the superheroes?
Yeah. And the weird thing is, and I think part of the reason why, like, I'm barely seeing mention of this online, is that it is in this awkward gray area where it's not blackface, it's not quite brown face. Legally, white people are allowed to just have a tan. You're allowed to use a bit of spray tan. But we all know why this very white child happened to, right before filming, get a very big spray tan. But it's not technically makeup to make her look like a different ethnicity. I think it is just like, this is just a tanned white person. We never say it's not. And no one in the makeup department was hired to do anything other than normal makeup for. So it is just under the wire enough that, like, it is legally not problematic. I don't know.
It also really goes under the wire because it's a child. So she had no say. She has no awareness of why you should or shouldn't
Yeah.
do this. She's just a kid who they told her to get a spray tan. So you're like, who's even culpable?
Yeah.
The director, the mom who maybe shoved this kid in a spray tan machine before her audition. Like, at what point was the spray tan introduced? It's kind of important, although any moment you look at her, you're like, that's a spray tan.
But also because she is like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child with a spray tan, she also looks like every like child beauty pageant contestant from a TLC show about like some like a terrible mom. Like, and so it's one of those looks where I'm like, this is what sometimes a child actor whose parent wants her to be a star looks like. So it's oddly organic and also terribly uncomfortable. It is wild.
It is absolutely wild. And it was quite uncomfortable to look at.
It was very upsetting.
It was. And also, it was very weird. It wasn't weird that she was his daughter. Like, a teacher can teach their daughter in a small town. Like, that happens all the time. But the teacher was so weird about it because the teacher told Max, he said, hey, stop dreaming and go make friends. And then Max in a later scene goes up to her and he's like, you're so cold, you're under the vent, go sit in my desk. And the teacher's like, hey, Max, not her. And I'm
Not
like,
my daughter.
Not my daughter. I'm like, they're like 10.
Yeah.
And you don't want him to be friends with your daughter and do a nice thing for her, which is let her sit in the warmer seat?
Your daughter's terribly ill.
She is so sick.
She has poor blood circulation, like 19 allergies by your own admission, and she's sitting under the vent, and no one's allowed to switch seats with her because it would involve talking with your daughter, who you forced to sit in the front row of your own class.
Is this a Goldfinger situation and she was dying from the spray tan? You know, because that
Probably
girl,
that,
when
yeah.
that girl got painted.
The air doesn't get through.
The air does. I mean, the air might not get through.
Air might not get through
it
that
was a
spray
pretty
tan.
thick ass spray tan.
But this son of a bitch father won't let his daughter move seats or make a friend.
To the nice boy who he said to make a friend to.
Yeah, even though otherwise he is a relatively nice teacher, which is a weird thing that he's the villain of this movie as well.
Yeah, it is very weird because he's supportive in a nice way. I feel like the parents are meaner about the dreaming than he is.
Oh yeah, the parents are way mean, or at least the mom is.
The mom is.
The only villain of this movie is the way the mom treats like the concept of dreams. And like for telling a child he needs to grow up, and that is very comical how much of a villain she is.
The absolute best interaction in this movie, and it was such an adult sick burn, is she tells her kid, you have to push aside your dreams, Max. And he says, like you did? And I'm like, what a crazy burn on your mother. Oh, man. Yeah, so but even then, she only says it like once.
Yeah.
And then George Lopez, I feel like George Lopez doesn't even tell him to stop dreaming. He's like, you have to write real assignments.
Right, do your actual homework.
Do your actual homework.
Like great fiction writing. Like yeah.
And dream writing,
Yeah.
fiction writing, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Writing down your dreams, much like the writer of the film. But yeah, he's like, but you got to make friends. And that's great advice. Don't stop dreaming, but you have to make real friends.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
There's no reason he should be the villain in the dream.
And especially like his dad's a writer or like trying to be a writer, or they don't really get into why the mom is so mad. Like, is he terrible? Is the dad successful at writing? But either way, I think like George Lopez's character, Mr. Electricidad, is very much like, you have the talent of your father. Like, go ahead and write, but there's a time and place for it, dum-dum. Like, write when you're supposed to write a fiction story.
Yeah, he definitely shouldn't be the villain, which is why I get why he was upset when he saw that he was the villain in the dream. He was like, oh, come on. I think he even said the brown guy's the villain. That's not cool.
Oh, does he actually say that? I don't remember that.
I could have sworn he said the word brown.
Ah,
So
okay.
I was like, I guess I'm glad you called that out. I don't know. Your kid's spray tanned.
It's very weird.
Too many things happening.
Lopez is trying a lot here, which I really like, is that he's the only person who showed up who seemed to like try to have fun or improv at all, or like really kind of do something with it. And granted, a lot of them are kids, but like David Arquette and Kristen Davis, who play the parents, they aren't really doing anything. They're just kind of stiffly reading the lines, which is fine. It's not like the performance of a lifetime, but Lopez is trying to have fun. It honestly feels like as much as the kids are pretending and not acting, George Lopez feels like the fun uncle at the party who's playing pretend with the kids.
Yes,
He's
he
also
does.
not acting, but he is trying to entertain kids with the kids.
He is like, oh, I'm pretending as well, but I'm going to try to make this good for adults.
Yeah.
He's trying to make it work for the adults who have to watch the kids do their play.
Yeah, whereas Kristen Davis and David Arquette are acting, but they know that there's nothing to act with here, so they're just saying lines, which is good enough, but they're just saying, but Lopez is trying to have fun.
Lopez is trying to have fun, although to the parents' benefit, they do get some of the funniest lines, which is just a funny line on the page, when the tornado shows up and is like sucking Kristen Davis in, and David Arquette like grabs her so she won't get sucked into a tornado, and she looks at him and says, "I thought you wanted me to leave."
Like, as if that's what the tornado is. It's just going to land her in a new city comfortably.
It's just going to write up a divorce contract.
Yeah, that's the divorce tornado. We all know about it.
No, that's going to kill you.
No, he didn't want you to die.
I thought you wanted me to leave. If I tried to start a fight while being sucked up into a volcano, I think I would divorce me. If after I landed, I was like, what was that bullshit you tried to start while you were getting sucked up into a volcano?
There are moments during this movie where where this straight up feels like bleak in the level of like Pan's Labyrinth, like a child came up with a dream world to escape the potential murder of a parent.
Yeah, like I think my parents are getting divorced, therefore I think they want each other to die.
Yeah.
Is not quite the wholesome energy the rest of the movie has.
No. And what is wild about this too is just like thinking about the behind the scenes of this, because the son, Racer Rodriguez, wrote this movie, or air quote wrote this movie, and then the parents, Robert and Marcel, directed and produced it and rewrote it. But a lot of this feels like a real fuck you to mom. Because a lot of it is like the creative writer dad, and Robert Rodriguez is a millionaire successful creative, but a lot of it is the creative writer dad and the mom being like, stop all your creative bullshit and get a real job. Why don't you look into accounting, you idiot? Like, it is weirdly anti the mom character, which has gotta be an awkward thing for the mom and dad to make together when the child wrote it.
Oh, that is a great point. Because, yeah, even the scene at breakfast when, like, the dad is like, let's build this robot and rebuild your dreams. And he was like, no, I'm supposed to stop dreaming. And he's like, don't listen to your mom or whatever. Yeah,
Mom told me not to be like you.
That is very awkward to have the mom be pretty much the only villain and the mom is on set and is like, do.
Yeah. And like, I don't think she's meant to be the movie villain, but it is enough that I'm like, oh, there are real life problems going on here that y'all need to sort out outside of a movie.
You need to talk to your son a little bit, maybe.
Jesus.
Although maybe the kid only wrote the Sharkboy and Lavagirl parts and they just filled in the rest.
Maybe. Who knows what the division of labor was?
Or he also just took this from Neverending Story. His parents were separated in that film.
Oh, okay.
Like all the Neverending Story-esque stuff, I think.
Interesting.
Could be maybe explained for a fill in the gap.
Now, while the parents aren't really doing anything, there's a few funny things like the tornado. Kristen Davis has it's one of the funniest line reads I've ever heard. And I don't even think it's meant to be that funny. But it's when Sharkboy and Lavagirl has eaten and burned the cookies. And Kristen Davis, who plays the mom, just walks in and goes, my cookies! My giant cookies! And the emphasis on giant, like that she has made absurdly large cookies. My cookies! My giant cookie! It is the best line read, and it slayed me.
It is so funny. It takes you aback how giant this line read is. And you know that Robert Rodriguez told you, like, okay, you have to say they're giant cookies because when he goes into the dream world, you're going to eat giant cookies. And she was like, okay, really emphasize the giant cookies. Got it. But not in a way that anyone else did. Like, George Lopez was like, my name's Mr. Electricidad, not Mr. Electric. And he just says it at a normal level. Whereas, but, like, she's, like, big on the giant cookies. And then, like, Linus and Minus whenever they go over his name, which comes up in the dream. They're like, you're going to get a minus on your assignment, Linus. But they don't say it very big. But she's just so huge on her tie-in to the dream. So you'll remember that they ate cookies once, I guess.
Honestly, it feels very similar to... Remember the episode of Friends? The Joey auditions for a soup commercial?
Noodle soup?
Noodle soup. No, Joey, the line's just soup. And then at one point, I remember in that episode, he gets it and then thinks that he didn't get it. And he goes, soup. Noodle soup. And he's then like immediately afterwards like, shit, you didn't need the... It feels like it feels like the line was, my giant cookies. And she went, my cookies. My giant cookies.
And they were like, we got it.
Like, that's the fucking tape. Similar to that George Lopez line, which clearly he fucks up the line and they still use the take.
What was that line?
Because it starts with George Lopez stands up, and I think it's supposed to be the moment when Linus gets the name Minus. And George Lopez stands up and he's like, stop doing that, Linus. Stop doing that, Linus. I'll give you a minus. We might start calling you Minus. Like, you shouldn't have said minus at the beginning of this sentence.
He gave it away at the beginning.
And they
kept
didn't
that
cut the beginning out.
the tape.
It's honest.
Every take in this movie was perfect, and they never had to do another one.
This is why it is brilliant and so frustrating, to go back to what I was saying earlier about, like, filmmaking. Because the fact that is in... It is honestly like they made this on a camcorder that records on VHS, and they had to edit it in camera. But the fact that $35 million went to post-production and teams of editors and CGI artists, when it really feels like it was actual kids editing this by hitting record on a VHS tape camcorder. And then they couldn't edit around, but George Lopez saved that take, God bless him. So there's shit like that where I'm like, it's fun, it's wildly charming, but how was there teams of people behind this?
I do get what you're saying. Moments like that do feel like you're recording a play. Because as someone who did a lot of plays in high school and like middle school, like you do mess up a line sometimes, or you miss a cue and then something's going to happen. You got to be like, oh no, we're falling. Oh no, we're falling? Sound effect? Like you gotta... you gotta, when you're on stage, you just gotta kind of keep going. And it does give that energy a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. The wind machine only works on one person, which is Max. And remember the rocket where only he's getting the skin flaps from a wind machine?
I didn't mind that because the other two have superpowers. I thought that was actually just funny and on purpose.
Yeah.
But it was see, only one of them was like doing a bit out of the three.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to talk about the revelation for Lavagirl. This is the other thing that I'm like, the parents should have helped rewrite this. Because her whole thing is that she is an underdeveloped character in his dream. Mm-hmm. So it is like...
And she's destructive, and she doesn't like that.
Yeah. So it's a combination of like, I don't like being destructive, and like a Pinocchio complex of like, I want to be a real person, and an underdeveloped female character not having anything to do or any backstory. Because Sharkboy gets this elaborate, like, I was raised training sharks on an offshore scientist rig, which was destroyed by a tornado. My dad was washed away. I was a rich backstory for Sharkboy. Mm-hmm. And Lavagirl gets nothing. And the whole movie, she's like, I need to know who I am. Please dream me a story. Dream me a backstory. And the movie ends with her just being light instead of lava. But she still doesn't have, like, a human name or parents.
She doesn't have a name. She doesn't have any family. She doesn't have other lava people. She's just in charge of volcanoes. And this actually was one of my biggest notes I wrote down about this movie, where this kid who wrote this was, like, 7. And even a 7-year-old was like, what are ladies like? They have no names, no agency, no backstory. And I'm like, dudes just always suck, huh? Dudes just can never write women, not even when it's your first woman you've ever written. I'm going to write a hot girl with no backstory who's into me.
Although credit to Racer as a 7-year-old child for being steps ahead of traditional Hollywood. Because while, yes, he's learned from every other movie he's watched and is very much a traditional male writer who does not understand what a woman's name, purpose, backstory, or how they continue after the story ends and really knows nothing about women. But as a 7-year-old, he's like, what are girls? I don't know. And I need to at least acknowledge that I don't know. There is a level of self-understanding that is still beyond most adult male filmmakers for him to be like, I don't understand girls, but I at least need to hang a lantern on the fact that I don't understand girls. I don't know how to write my way out of it yet, and maybe I never will, but I need to at least acknowledge that I'm sorry and I don't know. That's better than a lot of adults.
Oh, I will give him so much credit for the fact that he makes her super powerful. She's the one who defeats the darkness. And I'm going to give him all the credit in the world for having an equal build male-female super team. That doesn't happen again until Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's like way ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah, you got
This
that.
could have just been Sharkboy and his friend Lavagirl, who's around for a bit. Like, this is equal build Sharkboy and Lavagirl. Not mad about that. But it's just... It's so shocking to see so early in a child's writing that I just won't even give her a backstory.
Right.
I don't know how she got her powers. I don't know what she's going to do with them. I don't know why there aren't more lava people.
Right.
It's a real nick against the system, I'd say, and not so much against the boy of like the
Yeah.
media he consumed.
I'm definitely putting it on the system. When a 7-year-old boy has flaws, oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh,
for sure, bud.
This is spray tan kid all over
But when a
again.
7-year-old boy is doing better than most of the adults in the room, oh, that's a problem. That's a 7-year-old boy acknowledging his flaws better than Hollywood, and then a casting director casted a white woman to be a Latinx person's daughter. That's a problem.
Oh, he did make 2 powerful women as well. Because
Yeah.
Ice Princess also saves the day.
Yeah, that 7-year-old's doing pretty good.
You know what? He's doing pretty good. Ice Princess actually, I think, got more backstory than Lava Girl.
Yeah, a
she
little
had
bit.
a dad.
She
and
did
a
have a whole
kingdom.
thing. Yeah,
She
yeah,
was
yeah.
going, but like that's who his actual love interest is. So I guess that makes more sense. Because Lava Girl and Shark Boy are his parents, so you can't really be into her.
Yeah.
They're kind of the proxy.
Are they the proxy for his parents?
Kind of, because
Is that what that's supposed to be?
yeah,
No.
because the parents say what's the line? Some people just aren't compatible, and they say that at the beginning. The parents say that, and then Shark Boy and Lava Girl say it when one of them's. They're like, "I'm heat and he's water. We just aren't compatible."
Oh, okay.
So maybe they're not completely representing him, but they're representing the parents' relationship
Oh, interesting.
as people who aren't compatible.
Okay,
But
okay.
then they make it work in the end because they sacrifice for each other, and the parents sacrifice for each other with the tornadoes.
Okay.
It comes around.
All right. I get it.
I think maybe the last thing I want to talk about, and maybe we should have talked about this earlier. We were talking about like the CG of it all is the 3D.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how this looked in 3D. We didn't watch it in 3D. We don't have glasses or whatever, but you can see where the 3D stuff was. And they had no ideas for how to do 3D except for spitting things directly at the camera.
That was the one thing they had. A lot of spit jokes.
I think there was only 4 3D moments, and 3 of them were spit jokes.
Yeah, it was spit, roller coaster, I think.
Was the roller coaster 3D?
I think that was supposed to be a 3D moment.
Okay, maybe with like glasses on, it would have popped out a little bit. Because yeah, it was like the lava rocks.
Yeah.
And then like some water from Shark Boy.
Yeah.
And then there was a third spit. And then finally one of the brains hit the screen.
Oh, right.
And that was the first non-spit 3D moment. And like you're doing an action movie. More than spit can come towards the camera. It's a little oddly unimaginative for this movie.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure if that would maybe be the 7-year-old writing.
I don't think the 7-year-old picks what is 3D.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta animate what's in the script, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that's on the animators or on the parents or on the child who created the movie.
There's just so much more. Like,
But there is a lot more
they
you
shoot
can do with
lava,
that. Yes.
they shoot
Yeah.
ice, like fumes come out of the bikes they ride. Like, there's a ton of stuff you can throw at a screen that isn't just spit. You know how you go to a movie and you want to feel like you got spit at
on.
3
You
times?
really want to feel like you got spit on.
So not great choices for the 3D of the 3D movie, I'm going to say, would be my last and maybe only negative of a film I thoroughly enjoyed and thought the comedy was phenomenal on.
Very interesting. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lavagirl 3D. Let's go in for the final question of what would you change? What would you change about this if you could change anything? But before we do, we want to remind you, as we do every week, to please take a second to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcasts. We really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference to this podcast. It helps us move up the charts. It helps us new listeners discover us, and it makes it more likely that new listeners will listen to the podcast.
Yeah, so give us a quick 5-star review if you got a second. We love to read them. We love to see them. We love to put them in our hearts and hold them close.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this through a browser, open up a streaming service of some. We appreciate you listening, but open up a podcast service of your choice. Hit subscribe. That really does help us out. It makes a huge difference. And thank you so much to everybody who's already rated and reviewed. It really takes a second. Hit the star button. Leave that review. It means a lot.
Yeah, write noise, and we will say noise to you back in our hearts, and maybe on the podcast.
We'll see.
Noise to you, reviewers.
Noise to you. And as well, if you want to support the podcast monetarily, you can check us out over on Patreon. Patreon is a monthly subscription service where you can subscribe to online content creators you know and love and get cool bonuses for doing it at plenty of different levels. So whatever is in your budget, you can hit us up at $1 a month, $5, $10, whatever you can afford. And you'll get different levels of bonuses. Like even at the $1 level, you get our webcomic a day early and access to our to the first room code for our Patreon game night as well. And then at the $10 hero level, you get access to a exclusive episode of this podcast that's available only to our patrons every single month.
And you also get access to all the old episodes. So there is so much talk from superheroes waiting for you if you need a little bit more Diana Andrew in your life, and who doesn't?
Absolutely.
You're a fool if you don't.
Boom. So immediate access to the back catalog, and that all happens at the $10 hero level. And you can also change your level at any given time if you want to, according to your budget or whatever you have going on. So if you can, hit us up with $1 a month. Those add up and make a huge difference. We notice every new $1 patron, and we really appreciate every single one of you. I know sometimes it can feel silly to put in your credit card information or something to give someone $1, but for online content creators like us, that makes a huge difference. It adds up so fast and quick and really makes an impact on our life, this network, the podcast, and we wouldn't be able to afford the gear, the web hosting, the audio equipment, and everything that we do if it weren't for those patrons. And then if you have more, you can hit us up with more. You can change, you can cancel. There's no obligations. So check it out over at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That's patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And thank you to all of our current patrons, and thank you to our future patrons as well.
Oh, thank you, future patrons and current patrons. We love you all.
We appreciate you. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
My change is very simple because I did like this movie quite a bit. My change is all in the beginning. I think I need about 5 more minutes with Max before he goes into the dream world permanently during the tornado, because I don't feel like we got an establishing feel of what his world is like when dreams aren't reality. Because pretty much immediately, like, Sharkboy and Lavagirl are real. Like the cookies were eaten. There were burnt footsteps in the ground. So almost immediately off the bat, they were real, and you didn't get a sense of what Max's life is like while he's just dreaming them without them being real. Like, why is he needing to escape into dreams? Because it felt like he liked dreaming, but it didn't feel like his life was bad and that he needed to escape into the dreams, because I didn't get a feel for his life before Sharkboy and Lavagirl were real.
Right.
So I think I just want a little bit more to know when reality is reality and when it's breaking, because the whole movie is kind of like dreams are real from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just honestly a few little changes in the beginning for me to get a more establishing, like, because even the first time we see his parents fighting is when he's sneaking Sharkboy into the house.
Right.
So I'm like, well, the fight was probably real, but was Sharkboy real then, or did he become real later? Like,
we're already like in the thick of it.
Yeah, the movie opens and you're already like, Sharkboy and Lavagirl were in my room and that really happened. So I'm like, what when was your life not really full of dreams?
Right. Or when were the dreams just always fun and playful before the darkness crept in or something?
Yeah, something like that. It's a little bit more establishing of why you need to escape into these dreams, because your life doesn't seem that bad. It felt like the first time Linus had ever punished you was when it happened right in front of me.
Right.
Your parents still love you, but they're fighting a little bit. Like, I just need a little bit more of why he needs this.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because the dreams only went bad because Linus got his hand on the journal. And the journal changes the dreams, or Linus knew about the dreams, and like Nightmare on Elm Street met him in there or whatever. So that's weird. But that's the only reason the dreams went wrong. So we do need to know why the dreams were needed or right to begin with.
Yeah, and when they weren't real, I think, is more important to me. But yeah, also, like, Linus getting the book, I don't think should have changed the dreams all that much.
Right.
So yeah, I need a little bit... I needed to just have some more Nolan-esque rules about the dream state, which is a thing I never thought I'd say, but I like Inception, so it's fine. So yeah, a few more rules about the dream. That's my change. I like the rest. Taylor Lautner's a star. What about you?
Practical sets.
Oh, I can agree on the practical sets.
Because it can still be like funny and goofy and surreal, but if all of the charm and fun of this is that like it's like you said earlier, it's like a play. Like it is watching kids at a school play. And I want practical backdrops. And you don't need many, but for the budget that this movie gets, you can get a fucking lot. You can get at least like 5 banging practical sets. And then with like, you know, a digital background or whatever, like you throw up just like a composite backdrop where there's mountains. But for all of the shots, for literally no creativity for camera work. The camera pretty much never moves in this movie. It is just laid down on a tripod. It is one camera. It is filming your kids at a school play. So with no camera creativity, you need to lean into filming your kids on a school play. You need to have a creative, practical environment that can still be this like ultra colorful, surrealist dreamscape. I mean, Wizard of Oz, you use as an example, is a great example of that. That is a wildly creative, weird dreamscape that is a practical environment.
I mean, even the movie I keep saying this is based on, Neverending Story, is mostly practical.
Neverending Story. The horror version of this, Pan's Labyrinth, is a lot of practical effects as well. There are ways to do this practically that still make it feel like this fun and vibrant dreamscape, and I think would make it feel more like everything that works in this movie, which is when it's fun and pretend, and you are the parents filming your kids play, which is what this project is and what the heart and charm of it is. So I wanted to see practical environments with just then you throw up a composite green screen background, because obviously you're not on location or in mountains, but you just do a soundstage, you do a giant cookie, and then like giant lollipops, and it's like the candy land that you're in or whatever, or you're on the train of thought and just have like a train. Just have like a train set. It's as simple as that.
That is a great change, I will say, because the few times there are props, like the train was actually there. They were on a big cookie at one point. I think there's a giant piece of cake they land on that was practical and wasn't CG.
You might be right, yeah.
And you could tell the kids were having just a little bit more fun then because they didn't have to imagine it. Like, kids want big props.
Yeah.
Kids want to go play on a big playground of cookies and cake, and that would be incredibly fun. And I think these kids were already having fun. But you're right, with practical sets, the kids would have had even more fun. Like, we are really pretend playing now. We've got shark swords, and we've got actual things to climb on and play. I think that would bring it to life a little bit more. Especially because I feel like also Linus was on this big bed, and I didn't get a feeling that it was a bed. He would bounce on it. And I'm like, if you actually let this kid like bounce on something in this scene, he would be having so much fun.
And I guarantee you, having a set department and that is simply a lockdown camera, and it is just a JPEG of a giant bed. You, for cheaper than how you did that digital bed, you could have a set department make a giant fake bed for relatively cheap and a set department that would probably have a lot of fun making that type of giant prop. Like,
how do we make a giant bed?
yeah, you don't have to make a functional transformer. Like, these are affordable. Like, you just need wood and cloth for most of the prop. And wood, cloth, and paint, literally,
You need the bottom of a bouncy castle. You put it on a frame.
Literally, high school theater department level prop making is all you need. Wood, cloth, paint. Those are the three things that you need to make most of the practical environment sets in this.
Yeah, and that would be really fun and look really cool. And the kids would have been like, wow, we're on a giant bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this. I like this change.
I like your change too. I really like the idea of adding a little bit more of why are the dreams necessary, you know? And yeah, like on your subject of like kids having fun with a real environment, one of the only real environments in this movie was like the house that Max grows up in. And he has like, or the house that Max is in, and he's like having breakfast with his parents and stuff like that. It's like, you got a practical set for this. You rented a house and got on location and brought in lights for the most boring practical thing possible for a child to imagine what a house is like, which a child can imagine pretty easily on a green screen. But for a giant cookie or like a roller coaster ride, let the kids interact a bit more.
Yeah, I think that would make it much more fun. And the kids would have great stories and they'd have fun set photos instead of just being like, I'm in a shark costume.
Yeah.
On a green screen.
On a green screen. We'll see. Well, we'll see what next week brings us with We Can Be Heroes.
Oh, I'm genuinely quite excited to see what's changed with Robert Rodriguez's style and like how it's going to happen.
And to cover more Pedro Pascal on this podcast.
We didn't mean to do almost a month of Pedro Pascal.
3 out of 4 weeks is Pedro Pascal.
He's having a hot month.
Pedro's getting that bank, baby.
Getting that. Mandalorian, Wonder Woman, now We Can Be Heroes.
Yeah, well,
Watch it.
We'll be back with more Pedro next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me on Twitter at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can reach me at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.